Welcome to this series preview media availability edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. Today is Thursday, April 27th, 2023. The 31-11 Indiana Hoosiers hold a one-game lead on the Maryland Terrapins in the Big Ten Conference standings. These teams will play a three-game series this weekend, starting at Friday at 6 p.m. at Bart Kaufman Field in Bloomington. Yesterday, the media met with head coach Jeff Mercer to discuss the upcoming series.
Coach, we spoke to you a lot about Matthew Ellis' recovery process. Where's he at?
I don't think he'll be back anytime soon, to be honest with you. So, still kind of going through it, but I don't see him back in the foreseeable future, unfortunately.
And have you set the starting rotation for this weekend?
Have not yet. So we've talked about a couple different options, but we haven't yet. So we'll have Sonora on Saturday, but what we do on Friday or Sunday is not solidified yet.
I guess with Matthew then, with Matthew being out, then do you still expect to get Riley in there a little bit to give Peter a break?
When possible, when we can. And Vlad does a fine job. It's just like we kind of talked about the last few days, when every game is important. And so you're trying to put your best 9 guys out there. And we have a midweek off next week. Mm-hmm. And so last week was obviously a tough one, but we have, one midweek this week, off next week, and so we should be able to give him a little bit of a breather. And as long as his body's feeling okay, we'll kind of continue to run him out there as much as we can.
Just the implications of this series now, the importance of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's every Big Ten series is a big deal. Obviously, Maryland's a really talented team. They won the league by a good amount last year, and Rob's a great coach. It just anytime you have a chance to play against a good team, it's good baseball. And so, like I'll tell the guys, I mean, the games this weekend that count as the same as the games next weekend, the same as the games last weekend. They're all won. And so I think, you can get excited and those things are all good. Sometimes you can get too excited and try to do too much. And I don't worry about him being pumped up. I don't worry about him being ready to play. Sometimes you're trying to make sure guys are ready to play and that they're fired up. I don't worry about that. Sometimes you just can't put the cart before the horse, and it sounds super cliche until you're in the dugout and everyone's all pumped up and you're doing silly stuff. You just kind of got to go play. So it's important. I would lie if I said it wasn't going to be emotional, and I'm sure it'll be good crowds and it'll be exciting, but you just got to go play and kind of do the same things you always do.
Tyler Cerny, Big Ten Freshman of the Week. What's impressed you about him this season as a person and as a player?
Well, really that Illinois weekend, he and I kind of had a conversation, and he was kind of going through his freshman spell a little bit, where it's a hard game, and he plays with great emotion, and sometimes our emotions can overwhelm us. And I felt like he was kind of allowing his emotions to dictate the way in which he played, and we had a good conversation. It's just I want the guy that's the same tough kid that I recruited as a freshman at Center Grove, and who allows his emotions to drive him to be successful, but they don't overwhelm him. And he really has done that. He's just done a great job of allowing his competitive nature to drive him to success, not drive him crazy. He's obviously talented. He's long and athletic, a great defender, a really good runner, has good instincts on the bases. He's actually hit for more power than I really ever thought that he would. But I guess with his length, that doesn't shock me completely, but I didn't see it coming this early in his career. He's just a really, really good player. He needs to have longer at-bats. He needs to have better at-bats. Sometimes he's like on or out. It's like a firecracker, on or out in like one pitch, and sometimes we just got to kind of settle in. Certainly when we're seeing a new pitcher or first pitch of the inning, sometimes it's kind of a dynamo. But overall, he's done an awesome job of playing great defense. He's had good at-bats for the most part. He's been a good RBI guy. We kind of had our one moment there where we have to kind of get locked back in, and he only responded with being the player of the week. So I guess he did a pretty good job of handling that conversation. And that's a great thing about a kid like him who is young and was highly recruited and very talented, is his ability to be coachable. You don't always get the combination of all those things. You don't get a kid that's talented and touted and all those things, and then is also coachable. So I guess combination of all those things makes a pretty good player.
Jeff, I know some of these guys have probably asked this. I haven't had a chance to, but your in-conference ERA is 4 runs better than it was a year ago. And I know you have some new personnel, and you've had to fight through some adversity as well. What's been the collective common theme that these pitchers have been able to embrace to get better, and what role has Coach Gallant played in that as well?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. One, recruiting fixes a lot of things, right? So you bring in the 22 class is really talented on the mound. just from a freshman class, but also we were able to utilize the portal to our advantage. I think the ability to have a full season last year was critically important in the role of experience and development. You can't practice your way into playing in front of 5,000 people. You can't practice your way into real world experience. You have to play midweek games, and you have to go and play and travel and experience in front of crowds. You have to do those things. So I think those experiences last year really kind of helped to shape the identity and understanding of what baseball was like. For this year, 2 years ago, we didn't have those opportunities. We had a reduced season and no fans. So it was really hard for those guys psychologically and emotionally to understand what the game was going to require, right? So recruiting is a huge impact. Experience, you can't replace that. You can't replicate that. And then we made a few changes in how we held runners. So we made a few changes in how we held runners at first base. Just the frequency in which we pick felt like base stealing was causing more anxiety to the guys. And so we just kind of changed the frequency in which we picked the first base. And then we actually, I told the guys, we still held runners at second base, where we come set looking at the runner, or actually at the defender that's holding second base, shortstop at second base, and then instead of coming set looking at the catcher. So again, to relieve kind of the anxiety of like, what's the base runner doing behind us, so we can just focus on the task at hand. So try to simplify those things for the pitchers. Really work to diversify the array, not necessarily just a big breaking ball, which we have good big breaking balls. We had those last year as well. More sinkers, cutters, splitters. We have 2 or 3 different guys with splitters. Things to just hide the fastball. Things to hide the fastball a little bit more, try to create some more weak contact. So we went from allowing, I think, the most stolen bases to the least stolen bases. That's been a huge key to that. And then the anxiety that comes along with kind of the stolen bases of not having to fear that as much. So I think culmination of all those different things. Coach Clant was a great pitching coach last year. He's a great pitching coach this year. And he's going to continue to learn and grow just like I am. But Denton Sagerman has been instrumental in just the data collection and understanding how it applies. A lot of our shifting goes through, a lot of our scouting report goes through Denton, and he's been terrific in applying that stuff in real time. If you look at over the course of the weekends, and hopefully this weekend is similar, but we've really done a great job of getting better over the course of the weekends at mitigating and limiting runs scored, and certainly big innings. A lot of that has to do with shifts and how we can learn and grow over the course of the weekend. And Dustin, you come in every morning. He's in at 7 o'clock every morning, going over scouting reports and studying and watching film and making sure that we're ready to execute a plan. And then Denton's right there with him. So I think combination of probably those 6 or 8 things. But the biggest thing is you can call the right pitches. You can call the pitch to first. You can do all those things. If the guys aren't prepared and capable of handling the emotion of the moment, that's the biggest thing. You just got to be able to go out and execute in the moment. I call a fastball inside, and I throw a fastball, up and over the middle. It's a 3-run homer. It's the right pitch call. Didn't execute it, and so it looks terrible, but it was the right pitch call. So that's why it's so important that you play a hard early season schedule. It's important that you play true road games. It's important that you get your butt kicked. Getting beat by East Carolina 17-4 on a Friday with a fast track, the wind blowing out 100 miles an hour in front of 5,000 people is a great thing. It looks like hell. It looks like hell, but it's like you're able to play. You're able to go and play with Louisville, and you beat Louisville because you went and played East Carolina, right? So all those things it's all relative. And then the big thing is you just start stacking up recruiting classes year after year, and like Braden Reisdorf's just really talented. And Connor Foley was 94-97 yesterday. He's just really talented. And Ethan Phillips is really talented. Those guys Luke Sinard's really talented. So that helps when you start to get those classes on. And I think the last thing I would say is we lost our entire pitching rotation to the draft 3 consecutive years. And 2 years was 4 pitchers, 1 year was 5 pitchers. It's just hard to sustain that consistently without ever having the bump in the road. So no, it's a long-winded answer, but I would say those are my thoughts.
At the Big Ten tournament last year, you talked a little bit about how Maryland had kind of an unusual hot zone compared to most other teams. Is that still the case this year, and what are you doing to kind of prepare for it?
Yeah, it's actually why we haven't really necessarily made a decision on the starter. Yeah, they're I don't want to divulge too much either, but yeah, I feel fine about now. They're super offensive and they're really talented, and they're data driven as well. So they know what I know, and just like I know what everybody else knows about us. So, but yeah, they do, like they're going to handle pitches. and their zones, they're going to try to get them up and hit them out of here, right? And so, obviously, the way the turf plays has a lot to do determining with who pitches when and who does what, and the weather is going to be a really big part of that because we've done a really good job. I'm really proud of how our pitchers have managed, but we also have to put them in positions to be successful. Brooks High did a good job last week, and the turf didn't necessarily cooperate. So you have a sinker baller throwing on wet turf, and we look like we'd never played defense before. That's not necessarily Brooks' fault, and it's not necessarily the infield's fault. You just have the ball hydroplaning and skipping and like a gyro ball. Then you bring in Ryan Kraft and the same thing. So we want to make sure that we don't put Brooks in those situations. And I know I'm dodging your question, Terry.
That's fine.
But yes, I do feel fine about where we're at. Now, whether we execute or we don't execute, that will be all determination. Because if you can hit your spots, if you can do what you need to do, and you can line them up, we should be able to mitigate. If we don't, they're going to clobber 10 homers. And it's just really about execution. But we should have the stuff to be able to compete. We should be lined up, right? You have Phillips back up, you have Reisdorf back up, you have Foley. Foley should be back certainly for Saturday. We should have Yoho back, Kraft, and then obviously Seti, Sonord, and Brooks. So we're kind of back where we somehow we survived that 6-game stretch, and then ended up really back on target with where we wanted to be at, and went 6-0. So I know some of those games were nail biters, and some of the scores got a little bit wonky, but we had to be back on track for Friday, and we're back where we need to be, and I do feel good about our ability to our pitch plan anyway.
I guess on the other side of that, offensively, Maryland's pitching staff statistically near the bottom of the conference. What do you see from their staff that you could exploit as an offense?
It's really just their bullpen, and so their starters are good. The McCoy kid's been really good. Savakul, he's excellent. He'll be excellent. And the Dean kid had some form tightness, but he's been excellent too. He's been there, it feels like forever. He's kicked our butt several times. So their starters are good, and they've got 2 really primary bullpen arms. And sometimes, ERA can be very misleading because you can have a day where it's like you're not on schedule, right? And you're going to punt that day, and you give up 17 runs in one day, and now all of a sudden you go, 3 runs, 17 runs, and your ERA is super inflated, but you threw really well, right? And that stuff happens. So you see ERA can be really inflated, and it's kind of just the way it goes. But their starters are good. The Savakul kid's going to sink it, throw a good changeup, slider, curveball, kind of whatever is working for him that day, but he's excellent. The Dean kid, kind of same thing, super pitchable, sinker, and can move it. The McCoy kid is a projected first round pick in 25. Now he's a freshman, but he's got really good stuff, threw well against UCF earlier in the year. Has had some control issues a little bit recently, but anytime you got a 6'3", 6'4" lefty that's low 90s with a breaking ball, like they can be on any day, so you got to manage it. And then they've got 2 really, really good bullpen arms that are top couple round picks. So, if they get a bunch of weak contact and roll over early in counts, talk about Tyler Cerny and some of those guys, like if we ambush and roll over the third baseman and we have 4 and 5 and 6 pitch innings, we're going to look up and it's the 8th inning and Savakul's still in the game, and now you got a problem. You got a real problem. So we're going to have to get pitch counts up. If you're going to go early, you got to make sure you hit it hard somewhere. The wind's going to blow in on Friday. It's going to be an overcast day with the wind blowing in. So you would assume it's not going to be cheap home runs, and it'll be a low-scoring game, hopefully, and then kind of find a way to win it. But you're going to have to get their pitch count up. You're going to have to get in the bullpen. You're going to have to hit with runners in scoring position. And with the wind blowing in, you're going to have to rely on, just multiple hits to score in multiples. And that's always hard against veteran pitching, and especially as talented as they are across the field defensively.
With Sonard, what do you like about him? What drew you to him initially? And kind of what have you seen from this year? What's he like?
I think the first thing that attracted us to him, he was 6'9", and up to 97. It was a kind of a love at first sight in that regard. His TrackMan profile was really good. So the pitch profiles, he had multiple good to above average pitches, kind of a movement plot chart. His ERA wasn't very good, so we knew we had a chance to kind of have a diamond in the rough a little bit. He had low walks and moderate strikeouts. He just used his fastball too much, so his fastball usage was really, really high. He's got a really good curveball cutter. It was good. He had kind of a development splitter at the time, but we really wanted to dive into splitters. It was kind of him and Seti were 2 guys that we really liked just kind of looking into the future. I think the splitter is kind of the next major pitch in baseball. You got him on the phone and talk to him a little bit and spend time with him, and they have to value what you provide. So recruiting is all fit. You can have a really talented kid and he doesn't value what you provide, it's a bad fit, right? It's not going to work. I'm going to be a jerk. I can't believe this guy. He watches what we eat, and he's making us go to the nutritionist. We have to go to the weight room all the time, and he's always on us about coming in early and staying late and working, right? So, and I can be the same guy to somebody else, and it's like, I love it. He cares about what we eat. I love the fact that he loves the weight room. He's always there early and late. He's always wanting to work with us. I love it. So it really is based on, does the student athlete want what you provide? If he doesn't, then just stay away from him. It doesn't matter how talented he is. But Luke was really talented, and he really wanted to coach. That was a main priority to him. And so he had a good feeling that he could get better really quickly with just changing some pitch usages and getting his body in a little better shape. And then just a little bit of experience. So, and he's done that. And he's taken off. He's got a great personality. He's a lot of fun. I give him a hard time. We kind of spar back and forth. So I do enjoy that part. But he's very competitive when he's right and he's locked in, and he's still young. You have to remember he's a sophomore. So first-time starter, sophomore. That's asking a lot of the guys. So he's very competitive, and he can feel the emotion. He's better under duress. And you look at all the great pitchers you've watched, those guys are better under duress. When there's a guy on second base, they're better. When there's a guy in scoring position, they're better. And he has that quality where he's tougher to hit when there's guys on base than when there's not.
Maryland as a program as a whole hasn't lost a Big Ten series now in over 2 years. What do you kind of see that leads to their consistency?
Great recruiting. I mean, they had back-to-back top 25 classes, and those guys are now juniors and seniors, and so it's just you have to. Maryland's done an awesome job. They're like 2 or 3 years ahead of where we were at from a recruiting. Just they were here first, right? And so from a recruiting standpoint, you have back-to-back top 25 classes. You get those guys in, you play them early, they grow up, and ta-da, like good things happen. And on top of it, they're really good coaches. They're technology-driven, they're data-driven, they're player development-driven. You watch how they manage the game, and in a lot of ways, you're looking at what the future of college baseball is, right? It's terrific player development coupled with really good recruiting, and you allow yourself to sustain over a long period of time. But you're not destroyed by the draft on an annual basis, because they'll get hammered by the draft this year. They're going to get hammered by the draft, which is good for them. They've earned that right. But they'll be good again next year. Just like they lost some guys to the draft last year, they're good again this year. So when you see long-term sustained success like that, such a high level, 99% of the time we'll go back to a basis in recruiting. You can usually see, 2 or 3 top 25 classes in there, and then you've got guys that can develop players, off the field and allow them to perform on the field. And they do a good job managing the games as well.
You've got 5 guys right now with double-digit hit streaks. Have you seen an extra focus and consistency out of your lineups recently?
Well, I mean, the big thing was we faced really good pitching there for about a week, every day. I mean, we got whooped. And you kind of knew once you see really good pitching like that, your eyes get a little bit, they just get adjusted. And you usually kind of see an uptick in offensive production after that. And so I would say that's kind of the biggest thing is you get your butt kicked a little bit, you're a little bit embarrassed, you come in a little bit earlier, you stay a little bit later, you're watching your videos. So when you get, and again, we were winning games during that stretch, but we weren't scoring many runs. When you get beat like that or you don't have success, it usually kind of hardens you and shapes you a little bit, and then you go out and have more success there afterwards. So I would say that a little bit of lack of production set us up for the more recent success, and the guys done a great job. I feel like we're in a good spot offensively, about as good as we could be, considering with Ellis being out, with AJ Shepard being out. I'd like to get one more guy. We need to get one more, probably get to the 8-hole, and then Pete's always really dutiful, does a good job at the bottom. But we need to get to the 8-hole, whoever that's going to be. It needs to give us more something. We need to get on base from it. We need to get instant offense from it. We need to get something from the 8-hole. And outside of that, I feel like we're in a really good spot.
Jeff, you're starting to see the fruits of your success. You're named as a potential regional host. You're projected as such today by D1 Baseball. How does the clubhouse, what's the personality of the clubhouse and how they handle this? What are they business-like, kind of loose, little combination of both? How do they deal with that?
We've talked about it. I've because it's the first time this group has experienced it and kind of gone through it. Some of the publications have you ranked. Well, some of them have you as a regional host, and so when it's the first time that you're going through it, I think it's kind of important to discuss it, what it means, what the rankings, how they operate, and because if not, you leave them a little bit more to their own devices, and sometimes that's not always a good thing. So we have discussed it a little bit. I try not to have it be the main conversation piece throughout the day, and we'll have a conversation tomorrow. We'll have a team meeting, and we'll talk about what all it means and how easy it is for teams to get ahead of themselves. We have a month. We have a long way to go, and at the same time, as a coach, you can't pull it away from them either because they deserve that. They've done such a good job. We're 14-2. I looked at last night. We're 14-2 in games decided by 2 runs or less, unless my math is off, which it could be, but it's somewhere very close to that. They've done such an awesome job of finding ways to win games late. They've been so tough. They've been resilient, and so I want them to be proud of themselves. But we have to also understand that there's nothing that's a guarantee. I mean, there's no guarantee you make the Big Ten tournament. There's no guarantee that you make if you play really poorly. I mean, everybody gets bunched up, and first to worst is separated by not nearly as much as you would imagine. So we just have to stay on target, stay on track. But for a day or two, you try to let them enjoy it and talk about it and have fun, and as they should. And then we'll kind of talk about tomorrow, just tightening up the ship a little bit and getting ready for this weekend and kind of moving forward with kind of the same game plan. I always tell them the same thing. I don't care if we win or lose, and I really don't. I'm okay either way. As long as we're prepared, as long as we're focused, our mindset's the right place, and we go out and we play as fundamentally as we can and play as well as we can, I can live with either one. And so I think having that constant every day, from the first day of the fall to win or loss, I have to be the same, coaches have to be the same, and I think that really helps to put the player's mind at ease and not get ahead of yourself and just go play well on Friday.
Take 2 more. You've talked about guys in the clubhouse being vocal leaders.
Yeah.
What have you heard either in passing or in those one-on-one conversations of what your players are saying about this Maryland series?
I mean, they're fired up. They're fired up. They're excited. We kind of blocked it off where we were on the bye week, where you have that 6-game stretch, right? And you just have to be focused because it's really easy to say, all right, you look forward to Maryland and you kind of lift your head up. And so I was really adamant about just being where your feet are at and get through that 6-game stretch and be focused because you can stub your toe in the middle of that just as easy as anything else. And so right after the game, like we're doing our post-game meeting and we're breaking it down. And right before that, one of the upperclassmen was like, starts talking about Maryland. It's like, okay, good job, break it down. And so they're ready as quickly as they can. They did such a good job staying focused. We didn't want to talk about Maryland or anything during that 6-game stretch, but as soon as it was over with and my final comments were made, they were ready to turn their attention to Maryland. So they're excited, they're fired up as they should be. They're just deserved so. But they're old enough now where they've been kind of through the battles. I think what's exciting for them is they feel like they can compete, right? It's not like last year when we played against them and we beat them. We knew we could compete, but it was perceived such an upset to play with them in the extras in the first game, and then you beat them in the second game. I think the guys are excited because they know they can compete and win and have success. Now, whether you do or you don't, that's the fun of playing the games. But at least they can go into it being confident that we can compete.
You guys have dropped the last 3 Big Ten series openers. Is there anything different you want to do in terms of both hitting a team's ace and managing the pitching staff?
No, try not to lose. Try not to lose it. No, I don't. Sometimes it's the way it goes. I don't have you just do the best that you can. The thing for us is like without moving the rotation around. Now, what helps is Reisdorf growing up and Phillips growing up and Foley growing up. Like that helps a ton. Because you can eventually do something else, right? You can eventually move some guys around, or you can get somebody in there in the 3rd or 4th inning and try to stem the tide a little bit. You can do some things differently. So I think that would be the biggest thing that you can do. Is you're going to have to win 3-2. You're going to have to win 4-2. It's just typically not going to be. You're not going to score 7 or 8 runs on a Friday night. So that would be the biggest thing that we can do is we just had to grow up. You have to grow up. And then you got to get guys in there that can help you to stop the 2, 3, 4 run inning and find a way to win it. But I don't know that there's a whole lot that we do differently outside of grow up. From an offensive standpoint, we faced some good ones. They've done a really good job. Brody Brecht at Iowa was about as good as it gets, and they started at Penn State. They threw their Friday and Sunday guy. They stacked them on that game, and then we had a lead into the 8th inning against Illinois. And I didn't think we played very well, to be honest with you, the first 2 games at Illinois, and I told them that. I wasn't very happy about it, and we played really well the 3rd game. But we had a lead into the 8th inning, so it's just Friday nights are tough, and we have to do a little bit better job just managing those games. But I really think as guys have grown up, I think I have a shot to do that.
Thank you for listening. See you at the Bart.